Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Hi there. Welcome back to our second episode of In the Weeds. And these are kind of mini podcast episodes where we dive into questions that we get all the time or that have been submitted to us recently. Now that cannabis has become legalized, both for medical and for adult use. So lots of questions here. We're going to dig in. With me is Presley Menendez, who is our Associate Director of Guided. Yes. Can you just first and foremost tell people what Guided is?
Sure. It is an early intervention program for adolescents. We primarily work with kiddos age 11 to 19, and we do some one-on-one counseling sessions with them and provide them with some educational information in regards to substance use with the adolescent brain.
Awesome. So you were busy before cannabis was legalized for adults, correct?
Correct.
Now, how would you describe your call volume and your workload since cannabis has been legalized?
Oh, it has doubled, tripled. We could go on and on. Primarily within the school districts, it's definitely increased. So a lot.
So one of the questions we get a lot and have been for the last, I'm going to say probably 2 years, but more frequently in the last couple of months, it seems, is from a assistant principal, guidance counselor, high person who realizes there's something going on at their school or with a student or a group of students, and they call you panicking, saying, what do I do? So without naming names, there's been several schools in the news recently where there have been groups of students who have suffered overdoses, i.e. greening out. And yes, you can overdose from cannabis, not dead, but you can get really, really, really sick.
Yeah.
So if there's a student or a group of students that gets really, really, really sick and they need to intervene, usually they call you panicking, correct?
Correct.
And they say, what do I do?
What do I do? Help.
And then, help. And then how do you respond?
So we first and foremost want to reach out to that family. Okay. So we want to
or
sit
families.
Down. Or families.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes. Exactly. And we want to help them kind of calm down in this situation as well, for a lack of better words. But we want to be able to sit down with them and the adolescent, so that caregiver and that adolescent, to really gauge that level of use. Was this a friend brought some gummies to school and they wanted to try it? Was this an ongoing thing where they're maybe experimenting with these gummies to help with something? Let's figure out that level. Because
experimentation is very different than using it to cope or
1,000%.
Right.
1,000%.
Or selling it or
Yes.
whatever. I mean, those are very different ends of the spectrum.
Yes. And prior to cannabis being legalized, we were seeing obviously cannabis within a school, but with it being legalized, now it's happening within the school a whole lot more. And so whereas that experimenting might have been outside of school, now it's the norm to be doing it within school sometimes.
Yeah.
So, now it's let's sit down, let's figure out what this really is. And some adolescents might need treatment. That's okay. We'll help them find a treatment facility. But a lot of these kids fall under that gray area, that umbrella of 1 or 2 times or a little bit more. And they just need to know what they're putting in their body. They need to know it's not what it was years ago. Parents sometimes need to hear that. It's not what it was when they were maybe experimenting. It's a lot different.
It's a lot different.
Those THC levels are much higher. And so that's where that greening out comes from. And so we want to be able to sit down with them and decide, hey, what do you need? Do you need maybe some mental health services with that? That's important.
Sure.
About 9 out of 10 kids that I talk to and do assessments with they're maybe experimenting to help with something, to cope with something. And so we can kind of determine during this assessment, what type of workshops do they need? What type of education do they need? And maybe also some mental health therapy that we can help get them hooked up with. And so the school, sorry, I've just kind of went off this way. When the schools are contacting us, they're like, I don't specialize in this. Like, there's so much coming in, and we want to make sure that these kids are in good hands. But what do we do? And to a parent, that can be really overwhelming when a school says, hey, they've got to be suspended. Hey, we don't know what to do, but figure it out. Or some places say, hey, you've been caught with this. You need treatment now.
Right.
That's just not the case.
Right. It's not always the case. No.
No. And as a parent myself, I would be a little upset if somebody was like, your child needs treatment for something that adolescents do. Their brains aren't fully formed yet. They're going to make risky decisions.
And that they're not qualified to make that diagnosis,
Correct.
right? I mean, I'm certainly not a person who can diagnose someone and tell someone that they need treatment. So, and I think that's where a lot of school personnel are like, I don't know. And even before cannabis was legalized, schools were really using us as part of their discipline process, right?
Yeah.
And many times, not just with cannabis, but with other substances, if a student is caught at school or at a school dance or something like that, many school districts, you're given an option. It's like, do you want to go through this Guide Ed program?
Yes.
Or do you want to be suspended? Or do you want to go to alternative school? Or do you want to whatever? I know that there was one instance where students were given an option, and in the middle of one of the educational workshops, a student was like, it's for the birds, I'm out of here. And then now that kid's suspended. But that's also their choice, right? We're empowering them to make a choice. If they don't want to engage in the workshops and not be suspended, that's okay. That's their choice. And also there are a significant number of students who are like, I like this option better. This feels better to me.
I need to get back to school.
Yeah, and the family's like, this feels better to us. So you're staying here doing this.
Yeah. And the workshops are meant to be laxed in a way that they can look around to a whole bunch of other kids within that virtual Zoom class or that in-person class.
And we've even gone on site to one school, right? When you had a multitude of kiddos, right?
And they can look around at kids, not just in their school district, lots of school districts, or just parent referrals, and say, I'm not the only one that has gotten caught at school, or I'm not the only one experimenting. And that is so powerful.
Because then they look around and they're like, well, I'm not the freak, right? Or nothing's wrong with me.
Yes.
But to be clear, they're not also sitting in the group saying, oh, yeah, I had 3 gummy bears and, I got real sick and then I brought it to my friends and they all went to I mean, no one's comparing stories.
No.
That we don't allow that to happen.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We are there to provide them with educational facts and information. We know that is the leading factor of what can guide some healthy decision making. And it's important that they also talk. And so we want to hear what they think might be accurate. And then our facilitator is there to be like, here's why that's not the truth.
Right.
Even though I know
Interesting.
It is. Because we want everybody to have an input. Their voice is really important. And so within those workshops, they're learning these things, and they're really able to. I mean, when you're suspended from school, that can feel. I've had adolescents tell me that they then have maybe some suicidal ideations because they feel like their college careers may be ruined, that this is going to follow them throughout.
And then now communication in the home is tense at best, right? Because you have some adults who are like, oh, this is the worst thing in the entire world.
1,000%.
And they ground them for the rest of their life. And then, maybe other adults don't think it's that big of a deal, and it might have been a way to get attention. And now they're seeing that their adult is like, whatever. And that can lead to communication issues too, right?
1,000%.
So it's normal. And we're not saying that every teenager is going to use cannabis.
No.
We're also saying that teenagers' brains are not fully developed. that it is part of their job, quite literally, to make risky decisions.
Literally.
Right. Asking people out, trying out for the school play and sports and taking some other risks.
Yes.
Like that is part of teenagers' DNA.
1,000%. And to be quite honest, my brain is fully formed as an adult, and I don't always make the best decisions.
Ding,
and
ding,
so
ding.
we are
Right.
like, here, go to school, make good grades, work, do sports or extracurricular activities, and don't ever mess up. And so it's important that we are also encouraging the families to have these conversations at home through these workshops.
Right.
And that's one of my favorite pieces is the caregiver workshops within this. And so we are sitting down with the parents and saying, hey, the workshops that your adolescent is in, we also have for parents. It teaches you a parent's point of view, what drug trends you need to know about, what you need to know about them.
How do you set consequences?
Yes.
How do you rebuild trust?
How do you talk about it?
How do you discuss it?
How do you talk about it?
Right.
And, they're meant to be at the same time with different facilitators so that after the workshop, they're in just 2 separate rooms. They come back together in the living room and they're like, oh, did you know that? And the
Guess
kids,
what I just found out about the prefrontal cortex?
And or the adolescents like, duh, mom.
Yeah, hello. I learned that in health class.
But that clicks so much for those adolescents. And the adolescents that I've worked with the parents do that with them. They know they're not alone. They're saying, hey, if you're willing to learn with me, I'm a little bit more open to this. Because you're not just saying, you got in trouble, here's your consequence.
Right.
I want to know why, too. Why? What draws you to this? Why are you experimenting? I want to learn with you. And it's powerful.
It's powerful. So I want to come back to the communication piece in a second, but I also do just want to add that this program you're describing is at no cost to families.
Completely free.
So we have other mechanisms for funding, but we're not asking the family to pony up before they come.
Never.
Or the school.
Or the school.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that that's a shock at first, but, it's free. It should be everywhere. We don't want that to feel like also that they're in treatment because that's not what we do.
That's not what we do.
We just want to help that communication gap maybe within the families. We want to teach and we want to make sure that they are equipped with all of the tools to hopefully help them in their own life make healthier decisions moving forward. And if we can help with any part of that, then awesome.
Yeah, then we're doing our job. So I asked you, what's the answer when a school person calls you and says, Presley, help us? But then we also get some of the parents. You mentioned parent referrals, and we do get some of those too, where a parent will, let's say, find something in their kiddo's room, or their kid comes home from a party and they smell like weed. And they might reach out to us. A lot of times, they'll send us a question just to say, like, how do I talk to my kid about this? And if you have a parent or a caregiver that's saying, I'm worried that my teenager is using, how do I talk to them about it? What would you say?
So first and foremost, I feel like oftentimes we can it can feel so serious to have these conversations. And it is serious, but these are our kids. And we can almost feel like as parents, we don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't know what the teenager is going to say back. Like, well, you used to, or, well, it's legal in these conversations.
You take gummies to go to sleep, Mom.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And so those are hard conversations because you're like, I don't know, because we don't know everything. But it's okay to lean on that and lean into it and say, yeah, I'm nervous to talk to you about this, honestly. That lets the guard down. That vulnerability shines through and it allows that teenager to say, okay, you're relating to me a little bit. You're nervous. I'm nervous. All of that. So if we're leading with vulnerability and showing that you care first and foremost, and you're not here to judge them, you're not there to pick a fight or accuse them of anything, that's incredible. But the second part is that there are teaching moments all around us. all around us. So it doesn't need to be a sit down, let's talk about, I feel like you are acting differently and I know your friends smoke and all of these things. There are teachable moments all over. There is a cannabis shop on every corner now. And you're driving past them. Turn and say, hey, do you know what that shop is? Let's talk about it. Or you're watching a TV show and someone maybe drinks and drives, or they smoke and maybe make a wrong choice. Hey, what do you think that natural consequence would be for that? They're everywhere. And so having that naturally.
A car pulls up at a stoplight and you smell it. And like the 6-year-old is in the car going, what's that smell?
What is that?
You're like,
Yes. Teachable moments
Right.
everywhere. So it doesn't need to be such an ordeal and a very serious thing. It can really be day-to-day stuff. And also I saw a quote somewhere that said, you may not see it, but when you're talking to your adolescent, they're listening. Their headphones are on and they're like, yeah. They're listening.
or they roll their eyes. I heard something that say that every time your teenager rolls their eyes, that's basically them acknowledging that they're hearing you.
It. Yeah.
Or that they've heard you before and they're hearing you again.
Yes.
It's like, here we go again.
Yes.
But it's at least a signal that their brain is like processing it.
Yeah.
They might not be like listening, but they're like hearing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So keep talking.
Yeah, keep talking.
Keep talking. They're listening. And it might not seem like it, but they're listening. And inviting them in on, you might have some strict boundaries in your household. That's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
If this happens and if we catch you smoking cannabis or you get in trouble at school, here are going to be that is a firm no in our house. That's okay. Involve them in what those consequences should be.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do this as a family. What do you think a consequence for that would be? Write it down as a family. Involving them is so crucial because it's their life, and we don't know. We're not walking in their shoes. You know, school is different than it was when I was in school. Their decisions and stress that they go through every day at school or outside of school, we don't always know. And so it's really important to make sure, hey, I want to meet you where you're at. I want to understand. Those are key words in talking to your adolescent as well. I want to understand you. I'm here with you. I'm not going anywhere. Help me understand. Instead of, I think that this is why you're doing this, or you are, your grades are slipping, and instead of pointing out all the wrong things, I want to understand. Tell me what draws you to that. I want to know.
And also, I would imagine that you, if and when you have a parent or a caregiver call you with these concerns, I would imagine one thing that you sort of ask them in your nice Presley way is, what behavior are you modeling? Right? Because if they, just as an example, see that you're going to sleep every night by taking half a gummy, not that there's anything wrong with that, but if that's what they see, and then they're now emulating that behavior, it's kind of like,
You're one to talk.
It's like a,
Yeah, that's what they say. You're one to talk. Well, how can
kids say that, right? Like you're one, right?
Yeah.
You're a hypocrite.
Yes,
right. Exactly.
And that's why parents are scared to talk about it.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh,
They're gonna call me on my stuff. Like I don't even want to go there.
I'm not ready for it.
Right.
I am the parent.
Yeah.
And so you have to own if you are going to. You have to be prepared to answer to
just
your
like
adolescent.
with alcohol, right?
Yes.
Well, if drinking's so bad for me, then how come you do it?
Yep.
Or how come you drink every single time, grandma comes over? Well,
she stresses
because
me
she's
out.
a lot, like right? But like, you have to be willing to talk about those things, which is where vulnerability, humor can come in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our guided program.
Hey,
let's teach. Let's learn together because, I do, but I don't know what the consequences for an adolescent brain would be. My brain's fully formed. So let's learn together. I don't know what those risks would be. And that's what we teach in the workshops.
Presley is amazing.
Oh my God.
And so there's going to be a link to the guided program on the In the Weeds, microsite, which you can get to from the Prevent+Ed main site. There's also a place to drop questions in. So if you have more questions, not just for Presley, but other things that we just maybe scratched the surface on today, feel free to put those. And then there's also a link in case you need like more immediate help, because to your point, there's a whole spectrum here. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're finding out that your kiddo is using cannabis morning, noon, and night to cope with life stresses, that's a real different conversation than
Absolutely.
Experimented with an edible at a party. That's a very different combo.
Yep.
Yes. Can you come back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're invited.
This is fun.
Yeah, you're invited to come back. And as somebody who is like really weirdly protective of our guided program, I'm just really grateful and very proud that you have come in and just taken it on as your own and grown it and evolved it, and you live it. And
it's easy when it's a program this good and you can see the results of it and you hear the adolescent say, that was awesome.
Or then the caregiver going, wow, we actually had a conversation tonight.
Yes, those are my favorite.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. Yeah, you have a standing invitation. You come back anytime.
Yay.
Thank you, Presley, for getting in the weeds with us.
Yeah.
Join us next time when we dig in.
Thanks
See
for
ya.
having me.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.